Evil Deeds at Red Cougar by Robert Howard. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Evil Deeds at Red Cougar by Robert Howard. I've been accused of prejudice agin the town of Red Cougar on account of my habit of avoiding it if I have to ride 50 miles out'n my way to keep from going through there. I denies the slander. It ain't no more prejudiced for me to ride around Red Cougar than it is for a lobo to keep his paw out of a jump trap. My experiences in that there lair of iniquity is painful to recall. I was a stranger and took in. I was a sheep for the fleecin', and if some of the fleecers got their fingers ketched in the shears, it was their own fault. If I shuns Red Cougar like a plague, that makes it mutual, because the inhabitants of Red Cougar shuns me with equal enthusiasm, even to the p'int of desertin' their wagons and takin' to the bresh if they happened to meet me on the road. I warn't intendin' to go there in the first place. I been punchin' cows over in Utah and was headin' for Bear Creek with the $50 a draw poker game had left me out of my wages. When I seen a trail branchin' off of the main road, I knowed it turned off to Red Cougar, but it didn't make no impression on me. But I hadn't gone far past it when I heard a hoss runnin', and the next thing it busted round a bend in the road with foam flyin' from the bit rings. They was a gal on it, lookin' back over her shoulder down the road. Just as she rounded the turn her hoss stumbled and went to its knees, throwin' her over its head. I was off of Cap'n Kidd in an instant and ketched her hoss before it could run off. I helped her up and she grabbed holt of me and hollered, "Don't let 'em get me!" "Who?" I said, taking off my hat with one hand and drawing a .45 with the other. "A gang of desperadoes," she panted. "They've chased me for 5 miles. Oh, please, don't let them get me." "They'll tetch you over my dead carcass," I assured her. She give me a look which made my heart turn somersets. She had black curly hair and big innocent gray eyes, and she was the purtiest gal I'd seen in a coon's age. "Oh, thank you," she panted. "I knowed you was a gent the minute I seen you. Will you help me up onto my hoss?" "You shore you ain't hurt none?" I asked, and she said she warn't. So I helped her up, and she gathered up her reins and looked back down the road very nervous. "Don't let 'em foller me," she begged. "I'm going on." "You don't need to do that," I says. "Wait till I exterminate them scoundrels and I'll escort you home." But she started convulsively as the distant pound of hoofs reached us, and said, "Oh, I dast not. They mustn't even see me again." "But I want to," I said. "Where you live?" "Red Cougar," says she. "My name's Sue Pritchard. If you happen up that way, drop in." "I'll be there," I promised, and she flashed me a dazzling smile and loped on down the road and out of sight up the Red Cougar trail. So I set to work. I uses a rope wove out of buffalo hide, a right smart longer and thicker and stronger than the average riata, because a man my size has got to have a rope to match. I tied said lariat across the road about 3 foot off the ground. Then I backed Cap'n Kidd into the bushes, and pretty soon 6 men swept around the bend. The first hoss fell over my rope and the others fell over him, and the way they piled up in the road was beautiful to behold. Before you could bat your eye, they was a most amazin' tangle of kickin' hosses and cussin' men. I chose that instant to ride out of the bresh and throw my pistols down on 'em. "Cease that scandalous language and rise with your hands up," I requested, and they done so, but not cheerfully. Some had been kicked right severe by the hosses, and one had pitched over his cayuse's neck and lit on his head, and his conversation weren't no ways sensible. "What's the meaning of this here hold up?" demanded a tall maverick with long yaller whiskers. "Shut up," I told him sternly. "Men which chases a helpless gal like a pack of Injuns ain't fittin' for to talk to a white man." "Oh, so that's it," says he. "Well, let me tell you." "I said shut up," I roared, emphasizing my request by shooting the left tip off of his mustache. "I don't aim to powwow with no dern women chasing coyotes. In my country we decorate a live oak with your carcasses." "But you don't," began one of the others, but Yaller Whiskers profanely told him to shet up. "Don't you see he's one of Ridgway's men?" snarled he. "He's got the drop on us, but our turn'll come. Till it does, save your breath." "That's good advice," I says. "Unbuckle your gun belts and hang 'em on your saddle horns, and keep your hands away from them guns whilst you does it. I'd plumb welcome an excuse to salivate the whole mob of you." So they done it. Then I fired a few shots under the hosses' feet and stampeded 'em, and they run off down the road the direction they come from. Yaller Whiskers and his pals cussed something terrible. "Better save your wind," I advised 'em. "You likely got a good long walk ahead of you before you catches your cayuses." "I'll have your heart's blood for this," raved Yaller Whiskers. "I'll have your sculp if I have to trail you from here to Judgment Day. You don't know who you're monkeying with." "And I don't care," I snorted. "Vamoose!" They taken out down the road after their hosses, and I shot around their feet a few times to kind of speed 'em on their way. They disappeared down the road in a faint blue haze of profanity, and I turned around and headed for Red Cougar. I hoped to catch up with Miss Pritchett before she got to Red Cougar, but she had too good a start and was going too fast a gait. My heart pounded at the thought of her, and my corns begun to ache. It sure was love at first sight. Well, I'd followed the trail for maybe 3 miles when I heard guns banging ahead of me. A little bit later I come to where the trail forked, and I didn't know which'n led to Red Cougar. Whilst I was setting there wondering which branch to take, I heard hosses running again, and pretty soon a couple of men hove into sight, spurring hard and bending low like they was expecting to be shot from behind. When they approached me, I seen they had badges onto their vests and bullet holes in their hats. "Which is the road to Red Cougar?" I asked politely. "That'n," says the older feller, pinting back the way they'd come. "But if you're aiming to go there, I advises you to reflect deeply on the matter. Ponder, young man, ponder and meditate. Life is sweet after all." "What you mean?" I asked. "Who y'all chasing?" "Chasing, hell!" says he, polishing his sheriff's badge with his sleeve. "We're being chased. Buck Ridgway's in town." "Never heard of him," I says. "Well," says the sheriff, "Buck don't like strangers no more'n he does law officers, and you see how well he likes them." "This here's a free country," I snorted. "When I stays out of town on account of this here Ridgway or anybody else, there'll be ice in hell thick enough for the devil to skate on. I'm going to visit a young lady, Miss Sue Pritchard. Can you tell me where she lives?" They looked at me very peculiar, and the sheriff says, "Oh, in that case, well, she lives in the last cabin north of the general store on the left-hand side of the street." "Let's get going," urged his deputy nervously. "They may foller us." They started spurring again, and as I rode off I heard the deputy say, "Reckon he's one of 'em?" And the sheriff said, "If he ain't, he's the biggest damn fool that ever lived to come sparking Sue Pritchett." Then they rode out of hearing. I wondered who they was talking about, but soon forgot it as I rode on into